First, let's lay out what we're going to talk about during this presentation. We're going to talk about E-rate, which provides the funding or supplements the funding for the K-12 network. PeachNet, which is the backbone, that the underlying skeleton for the network. We're going to talk about the design of the K-12 network, and then we're going to talk about the services that the University System of Georgia Board of Regents provides to each location on the network. This quote is from Tom Wheeler, the FCC chairman, back in May of 2015. It says E-Rate is the nation's largest educational technology program, and it helps to ensure that almost every school in America has basic internet connectivity. So let's talk about the E-Rate program and give an overview. It started in 1997. $2.4 billion was set aside to subsidize internet access for K-12 school systems and public libraries across the country. Up to 90% of that internet cost could be subsidized based on socioeconomic level. So the range was 20% all the way up to 90%, depending on the socioeconomic makeup of the institution or site that you were trying to get reimbursed for. In 1997, there was still a large part of the country getting their internet access via modems and phone lines. So a portion of it in 1997, a portion of this would be applied to telecommunication, or in this case, analog line, POTS lines, and that sort of thing. If you fast forward to 2014 in the overhaul, we see an increase in funding. Funding jumps to $3.9 billion per year. But the main thing is there's no need for landlines anymore. So that piece was cut. The whole telecommunications piece was cut from E-Rate, because the new goal is to provide 100 megabits per 1,000 students. That's the initial goal anyway. But a long-term goal of providing 1 gigabit per every 1,000 students, or 1 gigabits per every 1,000 students. And the telecommunications piece, the landlines piece, most of that money got moved over into the expansion of the Wi-Fi throughout the country. So a target of $1 billion of that $3.9 million is directly for the expansion of Wi-Fi. In 2015, the state of Georgia Department of Education, the University of Georgia Board of Regents, and the federal government joined forces to create Georgia's K-12 network. Before we get into the K-12 network, let's talk about the PeachNet network. The PeachNet network is the backbone for the K-12 network. It's owned and operated by the University System of Georgia Board of Regents. It was built to connect the 26 member institutions of the system together in a series of fiber optics rings. It's dark fiber lit with AVA equipment, DWDM equipment. There's a layer 3 device at each institution that is managed by the University System of Georgia Board of Regents. All of the fiber optics lead to a main hub in Atlanta, which is at 56 Marietta, the Digital Realty Building. The Digital Realty Building is the congregation spot for all of the internet services, or the major internet services, or for the southeast region of the United States. Major players like Google, AT&T, Verizon all have presence in that building, and because the University System of Georgia is lucky enough to have presence in that building, we have that direct access to all of those major players. It also the network also consists of remote hubs. There are remote hubs in Augusta, Savannah, Darton, Macon, and Dalton. The ISP for PeachNet, the ISPs I should say for PeachNet are NTT, cogent, and SOCs, and that allows for redundancy and load management and that sort of thing. You don't want to ever have just one ISP because you never know what issues you're going to run into. And for the same reason, um, our routes out go through TIAX, Internet 2, and Transit Rail for the same exact reasons. So let's talk about the K-12 network design. The one key and the first key thing to note is the K-12 network is different from the University System of Georgia network in that it is a managed router service. The University System of Georgia Board of Regents does not own the devices at each location for the K-12 network, nor do we contract with local vendors to provide the last mile fiber from those networks to our regional locations throughout regional hubs throughout the state. It we contracted out with a vendor to provide those two things. The RFP was awarded to AT&T December 2014, and starting January the 1st of 2015, AT&T had 6 months to get a device to each location and to contract sometimes with local service providers for the last mile to get a connection from those locations to the regional hubs throughout the state. This network services 206 districts and 2,400 schools. The map shows all of the county locations, and if you see the circles on the map, that's either going to be a charter school or a city school in a county so that we can distinguish between the two. The total bandwidth for the network is 250 gigabits. We talked about the internet service providers and the routes and that sort of stuff in the last slide. So just know that PeachNet is the underground skeleton for this K-12 network. This MRS network is currently out for bid for 2020. We should know who's going to get the contract, hopefully sometime in December, and starting again January the 1st. Whoever wins the contract will have the unenviable task of putting a device in every single one of these locations again, and also making sure that the last mile providers are procured and have routes to our regional locations throughout the state. And so, as you can imagine, being that we will have to coordinate with all of these customers, we're going to have a busy 6 months. Next, let's take an overview of our services that we provide, which are 24-hour monitoring, ticket escalation, status updates, access to flows, and DDoS protection. If I take you through a typical outage, we'll get an update from my intermapper system that a site's down. It will alert, usually page me because I'm primary on this project. If I don't answer, then one of my teammates will handle the outage. But the first thing we do is verify power with AT&T. Once we verify power, then we escalate that to our escalation manager. So we get to bypass tier 1. If it's a single outage, then I'll work directly with the site and give them updates. If it's a multiple site outage, I'll usually post that to our status page so I don't have to call each and every site each time. They can look there and see the updates. And between me and the AT&T escalation manager will work this outage until the site's back up. Access to site traffic flows is very useful for troubleshooting for us and the site. Each site can go in and look and see exactly where their bandwidth is going, which allows them to do packet shaping and other different things to maximize their bandwidth. Probably the biggest thing we provide is DDoS protection. We have rules that we can put in place to limit the effects of DDoS attacks. And if need be, we actually have a service that we bought that we can route traffic through that service, and it'll actually clean up the DDoS attack before it gets to the site. That's the end of my presentation for today. I hope it was useful for everybody. And if there are any questions, of course, you can always contact me or we can answer them now. But there are a few references I have here, mostly dealing with E-rate, that please take a look at those if you're not familiar with the E-rate system so that you can get the most out of it. Thank you very much.